Okay, my friends, this will be part 5. In our last installment, we had conducted a negotiation with an Imperium ship captain that we encountered in the previous number 3. That we negotiated looking for information on a viable system with a breathable planet. My roles produced several in the same system. We're going to move our fleet to this system and begin the initial explorations of both the system and the planet, and potentially the other planet. One of the things I forgot to note in the last installment was that both the ship captain, my ship captain, and the Imperium captain gained a point in ranking, so their crews did not, just the captains, for conducting the negotiation. That's why I adjusted their paperwork appropriately. Now, remember, I also made a mistake in my counting, that I had said I rolled a 10, and if I start here, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I guess I did make a mistake. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. No, I guess I was correct. So now I made this mistake. This needs to be up here. That's what I get for second guessing myself. So this is a new map, and this is the previous map. And this is how these guys would connect. So if the mining ship was sitting in this system here, the system of planets would be right here. So as you can see, maps more or less go together. So I could trim this edge down, tape them together, and make a larger map, which I might do at some point. Although my limited table space makes me kind of not want to do that. So these are my star maps, star charts, depending on however you want to deal with it. These are extra file stuff here, not necessary. It goes over there. I went ahead and I set out and created the system, the beginning of the system sheet for this particular system. The system is yet unnamed. I have its coordinates. I have its star type. Its exploration is 0. The current cycle would be now cycle 2. So I'm going to put a 2 up here and do this in pencil. That way I can change it at a later date without constantly redoing the page, reprinting it over and over and over again. I don't have a name for this particular planet yet. I don't know how many moons, but I know it's grassland, spilled modifier, population growth chart. That's pretty much all we know. And since I know there's a second one in the same system, I created that as well. Now, all I got to do is move my ships to a new system, which, if you see, this would be the ship, one of my scouts. And I'm going to show you a trick. This is what I mentioned before that I've learned to do. I printed this out on a cardstock, right? And this allows me to move this from this system sheet to this system sheet. Fairly simple, fairly easy. And I've taken some tape. Since I intend to use this sheet repeatedly, I ran a strip of tape down both sides. This will keep the paper from tearing every time I move the sheet. Put a little bit of tape here. A little tape here. This is just some cheap leftover Christmas wrapping paper tape. But I also have a different kind of tape. This stuff here is what's called writable. You can write on it, which is desirable. Take a piece of this, and I'm going to stretch it across here. Another small piece here. Alright. What this is allowing me to do is write on this and erase and write and erase and write. So in this case, in cycle 1, we'd use 1 ton of fuel, 1 ton of supplies to move the ship in to do what we did in the previous system. So I've just now jumped the ship again, so now I'm down to 6. I'm going to write 6 there, and 6 tons of supplies. See, simple, easy peasy. And we're doing ship movement. So they all got 1 point ranking, both the crew and the captain. Now, in this particular case, I had said before, I'm going to do a couple different things. And one of those things is that I don't want to make an individual roll for entering a system chart entering a system chart for every ship coming in, because that magnifies the chances for something bad happening. And at this particular stage, we do not cannot afford to have much happen to go south. So we're going to go look up the chart, and we're going to make one fleet movement. This implies that all my ships jumped into the system at or pretty close to the same time. And we're got right here, it's called arriving at the known solar system. So I take my percentile die, and I got an 84. I will look up 84. 84 is nothing. That's what we kind of want at this point. And as some examples of what could go south, if I roll a 1 or a 2, I could get a bug attack. Think of Starship Troopers. These things are not nice, and it would also initiate a combat scenario, which I'm not really ready to do yet. And the fact that my crew, while I have a crew and the crew is available, nobody's armed. My colony package includes a limited amount of small arms, but they're not distributed yet. And that's just the nature of the beast. And I haven't produced any new ones because I haven't had time to set up a colony yet. We will get to that point. So currently my crews and captains are ill-equipped to deal with anything short of using their fists, and we don't want to do that. We also could have encounters with meteors and pirates, plasma storms. There's a number of potential problems. The list is small for a reason. Majority it's going to be nothing because we use this chart heavily. This chart gets used every time we come bouncing into a system. Anyway, we don't need to do that. So we've entered into the system. Now, as I said, we know the planets are here. We know it's a non-hazardous system because we got that from the negotiation from the captain of the Imperium ship. What we didn't get to do is get a free 10% or get a free exploration roll. We don't know what else is in the system, which in some aspects can work to our advantage because we're going to get to make a roll. We didn't get to use the other chart where we're entering unknown space, but we are going to still make an exploring unknown solar system roll because we've encountered that we don't know what's in this particular 10% slice other than these 2 planets. So I can make that roll and feel justified in doing so. 71%. And an asteroid belt. Only 2 mineral resources rolled once allowed, but one is at ×2, the other is ×3. And there is another one of those endless seeming typos that just frustrate me. So we now know that there is an asteroid belt that also shares the same slice of the planetary orbit as these 2 planets, which doesn't necessarily have to mean that the asteroids and the planets are in the exact same spot. They can 10% of a solar system is quite a big chunk of space. It's a matter of, at this point, it's a matter of aesthetics. How I, as the house lord or the player, chooses to present this to somebody else, if somebody else was to look at it, what would, so we got 1 MR at times 2, 1 MR times 3. This is actually going to be a fairly decent system. This is worthy of colonizing, and it's just dumb luck. But we now know 10% of this system. We also entered orbit over this particular planet. This gives us a couple advantages. Talk about exploring the solar system chapter, keeping a system map, exploring for mineral resources, trace mining, mining basics. We'll get to those eventually. We have to search. I've got asteroid fields listed in there. Errants, keeping a planetary master sheet. We will get to that too. That'll be in my next installment. We'll get to see as these particular sheets grow and fill out and become the full-on sheet that it will become once I use it on a daily basis. So we already know it's a breathable planet. Talks about exploring the planets. Non-breathable. First things first, we need to know how many moons that orbit this particular planet. This is a free exploration roll. It doesn't give you any experience. It also doesn't cost you nothing. In part is, you show up in orbit over a planet. If it's got a moon, you're going to know it's got a moon. So in this case, number of moons. The first thing is to determine if it has a moon and what quantity moons. Planets only roll once. Gas giants roll and apply their moon modifier. Moons, their errants and asteroids do not have moons. There's a small chart for gas giants determining what type of gas giant and its modifier for rolling moons. I have rolled some of these and ended up with an awful lot of moons, and those are a pain in the backside. You could spend a whole game campaign just that one system because there's so much there to deal with, and that's acceptable if that's what you want to do. So I'm going to roll. I got 22, and it says 1, and I'm just peachy with that. So I'm going to come up here, moons, 1. What I don't know is what type of moon. In order to know that, and yes, you could make an exploration. You could I'm going to do a search. I'm going to stare at it with a telescope. Doing any of that uses up stuff, and we've already used up stuff for this, so we can't use extra stuff. And ideally, you would move a ship or a shuttle to the moon to do a better search of it. But that's on the individual. I'm not going to sweat this. What I came here to do was to search the planet. So I got a free ride for the 10% because we already knew it was a safe system. We've discovered an asteroid belt because we entered the system. We've discovered that there's a moon. We already know what the type of planet is. Ideally, if we came into the system, we'd have rolled all this at the same time. But since we got the negotiations, wasn't necessary. Now, the one, and I may have mentioned this before, we'll mention it again, all ships have a movement, action, or movement and an action. So the movement was entering the system. The action was going to be making an exploration roll of the planet itself. Because I came into the system I already knew. I got a free 10% slice roll because I've entered the system. That gave me the asteroid belt. I could automatically check because I'm orbiting a planet. I know what type it is. I know all this stuff just because I'm looking at it, or I'm in orbit over it. I don't have to run sensors on this. Also, I already got this information through negotiations. And I also was able to get a freebie on the moon. So I know it has a moon. I just don't know what kind of moon, which isn't pertinent at this point. What I want to know is what's on the system. Gotta love mornings. I want to know what's on the planet. Because if I'm planning on settling on this planet, I've got, like I've said before, I've got 6 cycles before my ship trips all run out of supplies, and my colony ship, importantly, runs out of food and supplies. At that point, it starts degenerating. On cycle 7, I lose 10% of my colonists. On cycle 8, I lose 25%. Cycle 9 is 50%. Cycle 10, you don't have you got to restart. starting on cycle 7, when I start losing colonists, I have to start making morale rolls. And once at some point, they're just going to, the crew or the colonists are going to mutiny, and they're going to colonize whatever's available. They'll colonize an asteroid. They'll colonize an asteroid if that's all there's available, as opposed to let you sit there and let them all die. At that point, you have to decide if you want to continue the game or not, or reboot. It's your choice. But we're going to roll for our first 10% of the planet. I got a 15, so I'm going to put a 10 here. So now I know this planet is 10%. I have planetary exploration charts. There are 3 of them, so I'm going to roll on this mini chart, see which chart to use. 15 again, first chart, and 28. So looking down through the list of different things. And there's nothing. Now that just means is I found planet, I found grassland, I found terrain, no big deal. So my exploration roll, nothing, no big deal. Okay, so that scout ship has done its business. So now I'm going to bring in the first mining ship. Tape, fresh tape. You can see that's the problem with not putting a strip of tape down the edge of your paper. You're going to pull up a piece of the paper with it, and then the sticky part of your tape no longer will stick. So in this case, like I said, I've got strips of tape on this. This will allow me to reuse this over and over and over again without constantly wasting ink. You can use this, you can totally do this on your computer, your laptop, what have you. Although I find it's actually much easier to do this by paper, because you're not shuffling through dozens and dozens of files and trying to keep them. You can set something side by side much easier on paper than you can on a computer. I don't care who you are. Anyway, the ship comes in. My crews gain ranking. I use another 3 tons of fuel. Entering, making this jump. Another 1 ton of supplies. Okay. Now I got an option. I could have done this with any ship, but I need to make an MR roll. I need to know what kind of mineral resources are in large quantities. There's always trace elements of everything that's more or less on the charts, but what we're looking at is the large volume items that we can mine. In the case of Earth, we would find huge volumes of carbon, as an example. Probably one of the largest, most exploitable resources that we have is carbon, whether it's in a living organic form or in various elements that have long since decayed and turned into something else. We still call oil, coal, all that's carbon. Wood technically is carbon, although in some aspects we would argue wood falls under organics. So it's a matter of how you want to choose to use it, right? So anyway, making an exploration roll for MR is automatic. I just have to roll for the mineral resources itself. What that does is it means I cannot use this to explore the planet that's around. I'm going to use it to find out what kind of mineral resources I have available to it. Remember, like I said, one movement, one action. Mineral resources chart. That's what we got here. Mining basics. Planets have 1d10 plus 1d10 minus 2 MR plus oxygen and water, otherwise plus O and plus O2 unless the planet type says otherwise. And yes, I know it's H2O, I get that, but for ease of doing things on the exchanges later, I prefer to leave all mineral elements at either one or two letter acronym and not multiple letters, just simpler. So in this case, I'm going to take a dime, roll 110. I have 1 minus 2 is still 1. So if your math gets 0, re-roll or correct yourself, because on a 10-sided die you can't get a 0. I don't care who you are. Gary Gygax himself cannot get a ranking 0 out of a D10. So we get to roll only one time, which is not so good for a mining operation, but considering it's natural, it built really conveniently close and a second planet, I'm not going to grouse about it. And I roll a 9. Beryllium. I cannot pronounce it. Beryllium, otherwise BK. And I will write BK, which is technically not really a valuable resource for the house in the early stages. It's just it's a mineable substance that you can then later exploit and sell, but you're not going to find a lot of demand for it in your construction materials. Automatically we have oxygen and we have water. So we always have a minimum of 3 MR on a given planet. And this is important because I'm going to utilize 2 right here are 2 of the 3 necessary resources required to supply our ships. So mining oxygen and O2 water every cycle is going to allow me to keep these things operating. The only thing I need is an agri concern, which is in my ability to produce food, which then meets the 3 consumables, and an ability to produce fuel. So I'm already at 50% of my needs for my ships, which is a good thing, right? Okay, we've already established what the MR is. We don't need to do this twice. So my next ship coming in will be my other mining ship. Now, as you notice, I've made my tag for my shuttle smaller, which is what I meant to do at the beginning, but I didn't. I should have done it at the beginning, and it just means that I can tag it onto the other ship tag much easier. So I know that this ship is carrying the shuttle. It's just at a glance. I don't have to keep a bunch of paperwork on it, so I know, and then I can detach it by pulling it off, right? And I can reattach it by reattaching it. So I'm going to bring it over here. Like I said, over time through these things, you'll see how this particular system that I use to do this, and this is not in the book. I didn't put this in the book. I come up with this later as I fumbled through tearing up page after page after page over time, and figured out I needed to find a better way of doing this stuff. And it was trial and error. I got the idea from watching an old movie where they had air traffic controllers, and they had those little slips of paper that represent the planes, and they move them from section to section as the planes move about. And I thought, hey, you know what? I could do a variant on that. It would work well for the game purpose. And I thought, and it actually has worked out quite well. All right, so I've increased the ranking for the turn. Made the alterations for the supplies. Have not detached the shuttle yet, but I'm going to go ahead and change their ranking. Periodically, I will take these to my, as time allows, I will take these to my to the file on my computer and update those. That way, if I have to when I have to reprint these things at some point, they'll be up to date. And then there's times when you want to do that. Now, because my goal is to potentially settle this as a colony, as my capital of my would-be house, I want to really know as much about the planet as possible. So instead of I could use this ship's action to mine this and get a running start on boosting supplies. Potentially, oxygen O2 could be then transferred to other ships, but since I still don't have food or fuel, it's still going to be a problem. Your people can breathe, your people got their water met, they're still going to starve to death. It's just going to take longer. And if you run out of gas, you can't go anywhere. Simple as that. So I'm going to go ahead and do another 10% slice. I need to get my eraser thing out one of these, find it, where I put it. Makes this now 20%. We're going to come over here and we're going to roll on this chart to find out which of the 3 charts I get to use. Ooh, 99. Chart 3. So this means I get chart 3. 99 on one of the charts would be a Lulu. Could be really good, really bad. But we're only using chart 3, so. Alright. And I roll a 17. And 17 is a nothing. So far, no major stuff, which is fine. I'm going to then double down. I'm going to detach my shuttle. Obviously, you don't tape over the top of your stuff that you're transporting, right? Ideally, once I've taped these down, and I've got tape here, I can easily peel it up. The tape's still usable. See, you notice the difference there. It's clear. There's no paper stuck to it, and then put it on another sheet without any trouble. Shuttle's now detached. Problem with the shuttles are that they carry a much more limited supply. So this will be the second time I use it, which reduces both its fuel and its consumables to 1. That means I only have 1 more cycle's worth of use out of this thing, then it has to remain docked to one of my ships or landed somewhere and left to starve. Anyway, I'm going to use it to explore another slice of the planet. Now we're at 30%. And 90%. So 90% would have been on chart 3 anyway. So we're already on that system. So we will go 95 because all of the 9s is something else. Alright. 95. Wildlife encountered. See Developing Worlds Designing Fauna and Flora chapter. Well, we're not going to worry about what kind of wildlife at the moment. We just know that there is wildlife. So we discovered, and sometime in the near future, I will do an installment on creating wildlife using the rules that are in the book. All right, that brings us to the remaining last ship. Now, because I have a choice, I could come and bring that other scout ship in and do another slice of the planet, which then bring it up to 40%. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to choose to send it to the other planet we know that's here, because I'm curious, and it's a good way of showing how these things are going to work out. Put some tape down. And shut over. See, I don't know, at some point in my life, I've become to, I don't like wasting paper. I really don't. If you look at this tag, I misprinted, the day before yesterday I started, and there was some ink issues. So I went out yesterday and bought a new ink cartridge for my printer, and I took the cardstock and I just flipped it over and reused it. And ideally, a lot of these extra papers like this, where I would throw it away, you have a tendency to want to use the back for writing material, because I mean, I really don't like wasting resources in this aspect. It's not that I'm some tree hugger who's hugely into saving the ecology or what have you, but it's just, to me, it seems like a terrible waste, and we should not waste things if we can help it. There's too many things in our world that are already disposable and throwaway. And in part, this is one of the reasons I come up with this particular system. Ideally, I would love to do this 100% on my laptop, but I've tried it, and it just seems to be more chunky. It's easier to keep track of all the records on the laptop. But things like this, eventually you'll end up with a stack of planetary sheets like this. It's just easy to fold through and move things around. And by doing this, it just, to me, it's just easier and more environmentally friendly. So I'm going to should note that I'm giving them, they get 1 point of ranking every turn for just operating, for general experience. But because they are exploring, they're still exploring an unknown planet. So exploration of any sort, if you're physically hands-on, is going to be hazardous. Exploring from a distance, if I use, i.e. as some have proposed, just using sensors to do a scan, well, there's no threat, there's no risk, there's no points. So getting points is getting in and getting dirty is how you get your points, and I'm all about doing that. So the supplies, fuel. That's the cat snoring in the background. We are going to check for a moon. One die minus. All right. 1 moon it is. Oh wait, 81. Yeah, still 1 moon. Okay. And to answer your question, you could have up to 5. A regular planet can have up to 5 moons, and an asteroid or a gas giant at max could have 12 to 15 moons. At one point, I had it set up where we ended up like 30 or 40 moons, like you would see on our gas giants. Well, that's just a retarded amount of number to try to track. So I chose, through some discussions with a couple of my beta testers, all agreed that that was just excessive. So we adjusted it accordingly. 1 moon, and this planet is now 10%. We're going to roll to see which planetary exploration chart we can use. 53, which is chart 2. All right. exotic flora discovered. See, developing worlds. Alright, so we now have an exotic flora. Hoorah. And for all intents and purposes, that's it. That's all we were doing. We moved in cycle 2, we moved our entire fleet to this system. Majority of it's orbiting that one planet, the others orbiting the second planet. We've done exploration rolls, we've checked for mineral resources, and our next cycle, cycle 3, we're going to concentrate on trying to complete as much of that first planet as possible to get it explored, because this is likely to be the planet we're going to colonize first and turn into our regional capital. So we're going to want to do that. And to speed things up, we can make some adjustments in that aspect. So in that case, this is actually a short video from what the first four were. Not a big deal. And I'm torn between doing a second video on this or just rushing through this one. And I think we're just going to stick with this for a minute. And I'm going to keep in mind that now I went from cycle 2 to cycle 3. I'll make adjustments and all this stuff. This will be the last cycle I can use the shuttle, and I will make rolls. So we will go and make 30, 10, 20, 30, 40, and I'm going to bring this over here. So that will give us 50% plus the original 30, or the 30 we just did. So that would bring us up to 80% of our planetary rolls. So we'll call it chart 47 is chart 2. 74. I like to roll high on that yellow die for some reason. There's nothing, which we're fine with. Like I said, you think at the beginning you think you want a lot of stuff, but in reality, at the end of the day, you don't, because over time you're going to get a lot of stuff no matter what you do. And you can't change that 84. Like I said, that yellow die likes to roll on the high side. I have to change to a different dice. Chart 3. 35. Ooh. The remains of a base of some sort. A Tech Zero shed. A Tech Zero shed holds 25 tons of wheat. But it could be other things there. This would be grounds for an investigation in the near future. I'm not going to get bogged down on that one. And nothing. This is 3. 70%. Still on chart 3. 40. Abandoned surveillance status discovered in high orbit. A lot going on in this system. Last roll. 35. 2. 92. Look at it. How many times you roll 9 is just one right after another? Come on. And nothing. Alright. That brings us to 80%. And we carry that over to cycle before we get the last two, and I'm going to go ahead and do that. That way, on my next tutorial, I can show you how we colonize the planet. So I will go ahead and roll these out. So far, I haven't run into a bug nest or something that would make this planet unviable. And yes, that is a possible encounter, something you don't want to have. 49, which is nothing. 83, 11. Exotic flora discovered. Okay. I think there's a lot there potentially to do. And then future installments. Okay. So, in a recap, we've flew our entire ship fleet to this system, to where these planets are that we discovered through negotiation. We now know the moon types. We know the mineral resources on the base planet. We know there's some kind of wildlife, that there's some kind of exotic flora. There's the remains of some sort of base. There's an abandoned surveillance sat in a high orbit. We know there's an asteroid belt. We do not know what emerged there yet. It took us 2.5 cycles to explore this planet 100% using the majority of our fleet. I explored the second planet one time, discovered it had exotic flora. We know what kind of moon's on there. Ideally, we're going to come back and redo all that as well and finalize. So it's cycle 4. I would be able to, and I've only used 2 of these. This one, the shuttle itself is no longer usable. It's redocked. Ideally, I just docked it to the colony ship. I still have 2 more exploration rolls. I will probably use one of these to figure out what my resources here is, and then use the remaining one to do the same with the mineral resources on the other planet. I also probably want to come up with some kind of name for these planets and for the system. A note on the colony ship. I don't think I've ever discussed it or not. It's the reason I don't have a tag. I occasionally in the past have created just a generic tag to represent the ship itself. The ship itself is, for all intents and purposes, a modular designed one-shot. It's designed to carry, transport its colonists' initial colonization supplies and all the materials and components needed to manufacture a certain amount of pre-established builds. And then we'll see that in the next installment. The point of that ship is get you from your initial place to this place, and now it's going to dismantle itself, and we're going to tear it apart and set it up, and it's going to no longer exist. That's why it's not considered an actual ship. I don't have a ship class that's a reusable colony ship. It's just not the way it works. So like the star drives are going to become the power cores for the planetary power grid. And that's the easiest way to explain what happened to the colony ship. We tore it apart and used it to build our colony. So there you go, folks. Installment number 5. And I hope you are enjoying at least this experience with me. I know that it's good for me to do this, and I enjoy revisiting my own game system and reminding myself why I invested so much time and effort into it. And I hope we'll continue for some time with this until you guys get bored of it. There you go. Thank you.